In the summer of 1888, in Molise, it had not rained for months. The streams had dried up. The wells held little water. The fields were rather parched. The elders of the village spoke of a drought out of the ordinary. It was July. 4 months had passed since the first apparition at Cesa Santi. And in those very days, just below the rock where the two peasant women had seen the Madonna, something else happened that no one had expected. Water began to flow at the base of a rock in the middle of a drought. I am Danny Cicchino, and this is the Little Lourdes of Italy, Shrine of Our Lady of Sorrows. I would like you to stop for a moment and think about what it means for a spring to appear during a drought. It is not a small thing. It is not a folkloric detail. For a peasant community of 1888, a community that lived quite literally on the water that fell from the sky and the water that rose from the earth, a new spring was life itself. When word spread that at Cesa Santi water had appeared, fresh, clear, right where the Madonna had been seen, the people climbed up. They climbed up in procession. They climbed up with their vessels. They climbed up because the water was no longer simply water. It was a sign. And signs in the Bible always follow a precise logic. Moses strikes the rock in the desert and water flows from it. Jesus at the well of Sychar speaks to the Samaritan woman of a water that quenches thirst forever. And at Lourdes, 30 years before Castelpetroso, Bernadette scratched the earth with her hands, following the lady's instructions, and from there sprang the fountain that the world now knows. At Castelpetroso, the same script was unfolding, but with one difference. Here, the Madonna had said nothing. She had pointed to no spot. The water had simply flowed. The first people who drank the water, or who bathed in it, began to say that they felt better. At first, there were small things. A headache that passed, a fever that came down, chronic pains that eased. Nothing that, taken singly, could stand up to a scientific test. But then more serious cases began to arrive. People who had bathed themselves with the water and who spoke it of inescapable healings, wounds that closed, infirmities that improved, illnesses that vanished. The parish priest, Father Ferrara, the very man we met in the last episode, the man who at first did not believe, this time took up pen and paper and began to record names, dates, testimonies, because the Church, when she stands before something extraordinary, is never content with sentiment alone. She wants documents. One of the most beautiful stories is that of a man from Bologna. His name was Carlo Acquaderni. He was a Catholic publisher, a committed layman, known throughout Italy for his work in the press and in the apostolate. He had a son, Augusto, gravely ill with scarlet fever. Acquaderni had read in the newspapers the reports of the apparition of Castelpetroso. He was a cultured man, a prudent man, not one easily carried away. But even before Augusto fell ill, he had written to the parish priest and asked for a little of that miraculous water. The water arrived in Bologna. Acquaderni bathed his son there, in his own home in Bologna, with the water that had come from the mountain of Molise, and Augusto recovered. Now, I know what a listener of the 21st century might think. Coincidence, spontaneous remission. The medicine of the late 1800s was not the medicine of today. All true. But Acquaderni, who was a serious man, decided that such a healing could not remain a private matter. He had founded a magazine in January of 1888, Il Servo di Maria, the Servant of Mary, and this magazine became one of the principal means through which the news of Castelpetroso spread across Italy, and he contributed from his own resources to the building of the shrine. A father healed in his son often becomes the most effective apostle of all. This is an ancient rule. I would like to say something about the comparison with Lourdes, because the name Little Lourdes of Italy is no accident. Lourdes in 1888 was already famous throughout the Catholic world. The apparition to Bernadette has been recognized by the Church in 1862. The grotto was a destination of pilgrimages from every quarter. The water of Lourdes had become, in the popular imagination, a byword for healing. When, at Castelpetroso, the apparition began, and then the spring, the conversions, and then the healings, people naturally drew the parallel, and the name Little Lourdes was born like that, almost on its own, in the language of those who climbed up to the rock. But there are important differences, and they are worth naming. At Lourdes, there is one visionary, Bernadette. At Castelpetroso, there are two. At first, Fabiana and Serafina. At Lourdes, the Madonna speaks, delivers messages, asks for specific things. At Castelpetroso, the Madonna is silent. At Lourdes, the image is that the Immaculate Conception, with hands joined on her breast and a gentle smile. At Castelpetroso, it is the Mother of Sorrows, a mother standing beside her dead son, her arms open, offering her sorrow. They are two different faces of the same mother. At Lourdes, purity. At Castelpetroso, sorrow. At Lourdes, the joy of an announcement. At Castelpetroso, the silence of a passion shared. Today, the water of Castelpetroso continues to flow. There is a fountain, not from the basilica where pilgrims fill their little bottles and take them home. Some keep them for years. Others give them to distant family members. Still others, like Acquaderni in the 1800s, use them when someone they love is ill. The Church, on this matter, has always been prudent. She has never declared that water to be a healing water. She has said simply, there is a sign of connected to a place where the Mother of God has shown herself, and that whatever happens through that sign, if it happens, it is not the merit of the water, it is the merit of faith and of grace. But That historical document record and what they continue to record still today is the testimonies of the pilgrims, is something that cannot be dismissed with a shrug. Hundreds of cases over 138 years of people who climb up to the rock carrying a burden and came back down lighter, who drank of that water and felt something change inside them, who took home a little bottle and saw in the weeks that followed something they could not explain. I am not a theologian. I am not a physician. But this I know, there are things in life that escape the categories by which we are accustomed to measure the world. And a place like Castelpetroso reminds us that those categories, precious as they may be, are never enough. In the next episode, we will change format. It will not be a narration, but an interview. Because the story of Castelpetroso is not made with only documents from 1888. It is made also of living voices, of people who have made this shrine a part of their own lives, even thousands of miles away. We will listen to one of these voices directly from the Italian-American diaspora. If this story speaks to you, follow the Little Lourdes of Italy on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, so you will not miss what comes next. I am Danny Cicchino. Thank you for being with me. I will see you in the next episode.